Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland review, and welcome to Development Help Podcast. And this is the Movie Club, and we are going to be talking about everybody's giant lizard kaiju, and that is Godzilla, aka America, which we love. And it's Joe, it's Vinnie, it's Matt, it's Jim, and it's Kevin here. And this is the 1954 original Godzilla film that launched a franchise that apparently has 38 films in it because I looked it up yesterday on Wikipedia, which is the most reliable source of information. So let's get things started how we usually do. So each of us gives their basic thoughts. Joe, go.
I like that rhyme. Joe, go.
You're welcome.
So Godzilla, yeah. So I mean, like most people familiar with the franchise, I think at one point we've all probably seen a Godzilla film in our life. Really just thinking about Godzilla as like a franchise, it's kind of cool to see where these movies come from. And I feel like watching this film, I knew that it was going to be darker than a lot of the Godzilla movies that I enjoy. I do love the new take by Warner Brothers. I think those are entertaining. I did not like the '97 film as a kid. I was like kind of indifferent to it because I was a kid. The beauty of that film was that it introduced me to like all the Toho films, and I mentioned it when we were watching it together that we would just marathon. The marathon was there, and that's how I picked up the movies. Wouldn't say like I became the biggest fan of it, but like I always love seeing giant monsters destroy stuff. You see that in this movie, but kind of like what you mentioned before too, Shane, it's an allegory to the destruction of World War II. And with that said, it's not just, subtle, it is outright telling you that. And in some ways it's important for people to see that and to know that, so that the threat of nuclear power is present, and even though it's probably not as focused on with the later Godzilla films, it's about, hey, savior of Japan, and every once in a while he's the bad guy. It's a movie where Godzilla is a villain of consequence, and even his villainous acts aren't necessarily to be villainous. It's just because of what was done to him or her. I don't know if Godzilla takes a gender according to the '97 film. They never even clarified that too, I think, in the film. But anyways, very dark. And that'll be the last thing I'll say. Very dark, and it really emphasizes the darkness. Like, we'll probably talk about it a little bit more, but there are scenes that a couple times when we were watching the movie, I was like, wow, that is deeper than I expected it to be. That is super deep. And then we watch like one of the later Toho films that were like campy and fun and be like, hey guys, you remember that scene where, that was happening and then this is what happened afterwards? Like, franchises. Like, what do you do?
But yeah, just as we go around, add in a little bit of some background in terms of your Godzilla experience.
Yep.
So, Vinny.
All right, so this was my first time watching the original Godzilla. Before then, the only Godzilla movies that I had seen were the one from Roland Emmerich in the '90s, which I didn't care for, and then the one from about 10 years ago that Gareth Edwards did, with which flaws aside, I thought it was a decent movie, but I had never seen any of the other. I've never seen like the older Godzilla movies, but I was surprised like how much this movie had going for it in terms of story. Like, I know before watching it, I knew it was meant to be an allegory about about the consequences of the atomic bombs and everything like that. But I thought it was really just going to be like sort of a surface level type of thing. Like, like they just, I figured, oh, they'll just mention he Godzilla was created because of atomic bombs, and leave it at that. But no, like I was surprised at like how deep the movie went into that topic, and also how like how complex the characters were, because you have you have like that one scientist who you have that one scientist who creates the way to destroy Godzilla, but he knows that will have further consequences. You have the one professor who's the father to the female lead who's a zoologist, and he says no, we shouldn't destroy Godzilla, we should study him and figure out, like, what he's all about. So in terms of both character and story, I was surprised at how layered both those aspects of the movie were, and also just like the scenes of devastation. Like I was like, I was like, I'm sorry I keep saying that I was surprised, but I was like in the scenes of devastation, like I was surprised at like just at how dark it gets at certain times when you see like how horrified the citizens are of like what they're experiencing, like during Godzilla's rampage. And I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I was happy I was happy that I got a lot more out of this movie than I thought I was going to.
Matt?
Yeah, so I've been watching Godzilla movies for years. I remember like that was like my go-to thing when I was like sick from school and I had to like was either watch like nothing or like watch like VHS of Godzilla like movies over and over and over again. Like like the more like serious ones. I guess not serious, but like it's kind of like it's not like he's like doing it's not the Godzilla. It's like dancing and like he has a son and it's like and it's like that stuff and it's like instead of like a ray come out of his mouth, it's like a smoke donut. There's like sillier ones. There's more serious ones, I guess, like Mecha Godzilla, and there's like a bunch of other interesting ones. But this one is really interesting because it's it's like a disaster movie. It's like an anti-war kind of like message movie, and it's also kind of like a like an environmental message kind of movie as well, which is really interesting. So I thought that was interesting. Like watching it again, because I hadn't seen this one in particular for like years and years. I was like, oh wait, yeah, I forgot about that thing. But then, uh, so there were like moments, and also this is movies from the 50s, right? So like when you see miniature like toy cars like driving around, like sometimes it looks kind of silly, but sometimes it looks really, really awesome. Like I'm not entirely sure exactly how they had. I'm assuming a man in a suit, probably like on a set with like a majority of the set just like set ablaze, and that actually looked like real fire. Like I don't even know if green screen. I don't know how they did that. That was also like really, really interesting. And also, and I guess the last thing is that like, if you watch like a lot of Godzilla movies, like you'll see like the design, like the creature design, kind of like change over like the decades. This one looks really interesting. It looks really. He has like these terrifying teeth, and it's not as friendly as maybe like the movies from like the 90s or like the 80s rather. I feel like the 90s ones get kind of more serious again. I think that's when like Space Godzilla came out, whatever. But yeah, super dope movie. Highly recommend it. And yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Awesome film.
Jim?
I was first exposed to Godzilla with a double VHS, and I remember it was Mecha Godzilla, and then it might have been Mothra, but I honestly can't remember what the second film was. And then I had, just for clarification, was the 97 Godzilla the Roland Emmerich Godzilla?
Yes.
So I think I got that as a gift when I was pretty young. So those three films were like kind of the entirety until I got to college, and then I got to see one of the corny, there was like a real white savior thing going on, and the maybe Matt knows what I'm talking about.
I had to mute myself.
It was super corny, the one that and like he might have been high. I don't know the guy that I watched it with. I don't remember. I wasn't impressed with that one. I'll say that. This movie I enjoyed very much. Kind of the way, like, I never enjoyed horror films, but I liked Psycho. When I finally watched Psycho last year, I'm embarrassed to say it took me that long. I was impressed with the sound design. I don't think they ever improved on the sound of Godzilla's roar from the first movie. Everything that everybody said already. Yeah. The fact that the Godzilla creature was awakened by the hydrogen bomb was pretty on the nose. After watching Oppenheimer, that was kind of really on the, not just then, but like a couple weeks ago, watching Oppenheimer, it was like really on my brain. I liked how the scientist understood the monster. There were a couple scenes that maybe we could talk about that I thought put some parallels between them. And yeah, I liked it overall, really positive. But there was the guy in the beginning of the movie who seemed like he was the voice of wisdom, and he was like, "We need to sacrifice a virgin to appease the gods." And they never sacrificed any virgins. I was kind of disappointed, I'll be honest.
They done messed up. They were going to go full King Kong and just go right there. And they never delivered. 0 out of 5. Half a star on Letterboxd. No virgins actually sacrificed in the movie. And I can guarantee you that's probably an actual review somewhere on Letterboxd. But Kevin.
Yeah, so a little backstory for me. I also grew up watching the VHSs of the old Godzilla movies. I had the double tape thing as well with Mechagodzilla in it. I don't remember what the other one was either. So I grew up watching those. Little side note, when the 98 movie was coming out, as a kid, I was really excited for it because I had worn down the tapes for all the other ones. My parents didn't let me see that one because it was PG-13. I distinctly remember the first time I ever watched a DVD, I got grounded for it because I went to my neighbor's house. He had that 98 Zilla on DVD. I went to watch it. My parents found out. I got in trouble. But but that was, yeah, I have fond memories of all the Godzilla movies, really. The 98 one included. It's a little bit silly. It's a little bit of a stupid movie. I still go back to that one from time to time. For nostalgia's sake. The first time I saw this version of Godzilla might have been 10 or 12 years ago. As a kid, I did watch the Americanized version called King of the Monsters. I think that one came out in 56, 57. I don't remember that one too well. They inserted Raymond Burr as another character into this movie that we just watched and just threw some random scenes with him in there. I don't remember that one making too much sense. I like this one. I like Godzilla's design. As everyone else has said, it's a little bit on the nose with the allegory. I think after we watched it yesterday, I said, yeah, that was pretty heavy-handed, but I liked it. I think that's a good description of the movie overall. It's kind of heavy-handed with the allegory, but it serves a purpose. And it's, Godzilla's being driven by what happened to nature, essentially. He's causing this destruction, and then that causes a dilemma on the human. Should we kill him? Should we study him? I like that angle that this movie took with it. And yeah, I just really like the way it was handled. I like the destruction of Tokyo. I thought was handled very well. I think that might have been the longest scene in the movie. It went on for about 15 minutes or so. By the end of that scene, personally, when I first saw it, I was a little bit drained. And yeah, I do like the miniatures as well. When Matt mentioned that, the one that comes to mind for me is early in the movie, there's a tsunami, and you see this helicopter tumble away. That looked a little bit goofy, but it kind of adds to the charm. It is an old movie.
Yeah, my background, I have seen probably a lot of the old Toho Godzilla films on TV. That was definitely like whenever they came on, I watched them a lot. Whenever James Bond came on, I watched them a lot. So like those were definitely parts of my childhood growing up. I do distinctly remember watching Godzilla, the Roland Emmerich one from the 90s, and I've seen all the Godzillas in Legendary and Warner Brothers series up to this point. And one thing that I greatly appreciate about this film, you spend a decent amount of time with the human characters who are believable scientists who are actually problem solving and thinking about critically and expanding upon some interesting ideas. Which you can't say about most of the legendary Warner Brothers Godzilla movies at this point. It's like I feel like most of the time when I watch them, like I can't stand these human characters. I just want to get back to smashy and explosions. But like I really enjoyed the story going on here and how they're trying to deal with this. And this film was so interesting that we watched this, which came out almost 70 years before Oppenheimer, since they have pretty similar messaging of like, there's consequences to this. It's just like, don't do this. And sure, at the very end, they make that very, very clear. But I felt like it was like a strong indictment at the audience because like this came out 9 years after World War II ended. So like this was not a film that like this was like years later of reflection. Like this was still fresh in terms of like probably the vast majority of Japanese people lived through this experience. And from a technical standpoint, just the use of models, which that's the best you're going to get in early cinema in like the 1950s. And they did such an amazing job with everything. I like the editing was great, building tension, how they put it all together. Sure, there's certainly moments where I'm like, yep, that is definitely a toy car. That toy car is definitely getting flipped over. But I was too busy in the moment. And Toshiro Honda, who directed this, really put together a great film. And I have to say, Akira Fukukube's score, that Godzilla theme is absolutely amazing. And it's legitimately one of my favorite pieces of film score because it's just such a great theme for Godzilla. And that was years before Blue Oyster Cult made one. So there you go. And if you haven't listened to that song Godzilla, have fun. So,
I just want to say, like, did anyone else notice that the actor who plays the zoologist is the same guy who played the woodcutter in our last movie, Rashomon?
Yes,
Yeah.
Takashi Shimura is a pretty legendary Japanese actor, and I thought he was a great veteran presence to show up in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, what are some of the things that stood out to everybody?
So I'd like to talk about Godzilla's design a little bit. So I was talking to you and Joe about this yesterday while we were watching it, Shane. But if you look at the shape of his head, it's a little bit funny. One thing that I do know about this movie is that they shaped his head after a mushroom cloud, and that's why he looks a little bit janky. I thought that was a cool decision, considering the context. I really like the design of his suit overall, though. There's a couple shots of the suit that I thought were really, really gorgeous looking in the movie. Every time his tail is swinging, I think that looked really good, especially when it was over the ocean. And just the movements of the suit, I know it was limited. The guy was wearing like a 230-pound suit. That must have been a nightmare to film in, I'm sure, but they made it work.
Well, in terms of his costume, like obviously, for like pretty much the whole movie, like it very much looks like a costume.
Right.
But I was gonna say, like, like there were a few shots like in the nighttime scenes when he's going on his rampage, like the way the lighting hits the moisture on his costume, like it actually, like in just those couple of shots, like like it actually looked more than a like I mean to me anyway, like it looked more than a costume. Like it actually looked like a little it actually looked a little realistic again with the way how the light hits the moisture on on his on Godzilla and like it added like it added like a sort of texture to it that went beyond that went beyond like the costume look of Godzilla.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that made this film work and keep it serious is black and white and shooting at night. Like, I think especially since a lot of the action takes place at night, it helps make it feel more realistic and you're not as distracted by a lot of those things. Because, like, as we watched the Destroy All Monsters film, it is very classic, like 70s Godzilla, where it's like wide open fields, broad daylight, and they're very obviously guys in suits going like, and start like charging at each other. And it's fun, it's campy, but like that's not this film. And I think a good filmmaker is going to find ways to make something work. And, Spielberg did it with a malfunctioning shark. Honda did it with a very obvious guy in a suit and really made it work for this movie.
And also didn't show Godzilla for like a pretty long time. Like when you think about it, like it's not like it opens up and Godzilla's like foot is like smashing something. Like there's like a lot of like interesting build up,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like just like this tension that keeps building. It's like what's happening, and then like the news clippings and like the zoom ins. Like that, I thought that was also like really interesting too. And when you finally do see him, or at least a part of him, it's like oh crap, like this is like it's like a huge thing. Like he's like peering over a hill. It's like a huge thing, and then you really see him. He's like flipping stuff and people are like screaming. Yeah, awesome. Great.
Yeah, I thought the buildup was pretty well done. Obviously, at this point, we're 38 movies deep in this franchise. So some of it might seem a little tropey or done to death at this point, but this is the first in the series. I like the way they handled the buildup. They started on a smaller scale. It became more and more of a threat to all of Japan as the movie went on. It started out with this just this one little island uh, with the little fishing village and whatnot, and all those people's superstitions and everything that they had. And I like that how I like how that branched out throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I thought that this film was really well written. It's co-written by Honda and a couple others, and it's based off of the story The Giant Monster from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was a Japanese story. And it's one of those kinds of things where it knows that you have a big payoff coming, but it makes sure that it builds the tension and suspense. And when you make a film like this, you need to have tension and suspense. Because if you don't, then it's just, a guy in a suit smashing things and you don't feel it. And there's moments during his destruction of Tokyo where like, there was some, like the aftermath, like seeing like kids upset because mom died. It's just like, holy crap. Like that actually really impacted the experience of watching this film, and there's real consequences and very human consequences to what was going on screen. So all that build up, because like you didn't see some of that stuff until like going into the third act of the film, and at that point it's just like it hits emotionally.
I think like the music, like not just like the sound. Well, I guess like I'll talk about the sound in a second, but I feel like the fact that like you'll obviously hear like Godzilla's theme in Godzilla, but it's not like there's emotionally manipulative music playing that's like telling you like okay it's time to be sad now. Like there are like definitely like moments where there's literally nothing that you hear as like except for like Godzilla stomping or just like things burning in the background. I thought that was really like really effective, like to be honest with you, and it to the point where this movie like I wouldn't really consider this like a popcorn movie. Like there's not really like many moments where or any moments that are I think are like funny or there's kind of like a moment where you feel like oh like you get like a rousing kind of like a cheering kind of thing. I feel like this is a pretty, if it's not somber, then it's destruction. And then there's kind of like the consequence of the destruction, and then it goes somber again. And I thought that was also like really interesting too. So I think like the tone that they picked and stuck with, like it landed throughout. Versus other movies where you feel where it's kind of like there's tension and then there's like a joke or like a one liner kind of like deflates it, and I feel like that's like kind of like embarrassing, almost kind of cringy sometimes. Like yeah, so I thought that was really cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, like
There's literally a line in the film where one of the characters describes Godzilla as being baptized by the flames of the hydrogen bomb, which is such an epic line, and it's such a deep line. And it's not like a catchy, Marvel, like, like a quip or anything. It's just stating the facts that, this is the devastation of the atomic bomb.
Yeah,
Can we
yeah,
talk
like,
about that scientist a little bit? Sorry, Vinny, go ahead. And then
no,
the scientist you said was the woodcutter in Rashomon as well.
yeah.
Yep.
No, but I was gonna say like just because this is a giant monster movie, like I was going into this movie like not that I was hoping for this one way or the other, but I just assumed that the movie would just be like a campy sort of monster movie, but no, I was pleased to see that like it fully embraces like it's the whole story about with the impacts of Godzilla's destruction and our destruction that caused the creation of Godzilla. And yeah, I was pleased with how committed this movie was to not like as you guys said, not to like throw in a joke here and there to alleviate the tension, but it really does just stick with that emotional tone throughout, and that's what really makes this movie as impactful as it is.
The miniature scenes were kind of like comic relief to me.
Yeah.
Unintentionally though, right? Unintentionally.
Well, they were doing
well, for me, like the use of miniatures, I really like those little charms of like those little charms of like old school filmmaking when you see people working within the limits of what they can work with. So whenever you see a miniature set, yeah, like it might elicit a chuckle, but at the same time, it is pretty endearing to see how what people used, no matter how limited they were, to get like their vision on screen.
Godzilla was originally supposed to be stop motion in this movie. They scrapped the idea because they didn't have the staff to do it. It would have taken them 7 years.
It would have been so cool though. That would have been.
I didn't know stop motion was a thing. Like
stop
back
motion's
then.
been a thing since like
The 30s.
1904.
Yeah. King Kong came out in like the 20s and 30s.
I've been watching some films on Cinematic Wasteland that uses stop motion animation, and they're like from 1906, 1907,
Oh, wow.
1908.
Did you see the one?
Trip to the Moon is stop motion, right? That's like 1906.
I don't know if there's any stop motion in that. A lot of them are like, I was watching like The Haunted Hotel, and you watch like a loaf of bread cut itself through like stop motion animation and stuff like that.
There's the Lost World in the 20s.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm so used to seeing what stop motion is today that I just never thought of it ever existing like 100 years ago.
Just think of it as
King Kong stop motion. Like,
What was that?
Isn't King Kong from like the 30s stop motion? So
yeah, that was in the 20s.
There was a King Kong before this 1954 movie.
Yeah,
33. Yeah, that was the first
33.
King
Oh
Kong.
wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, that has stop motion King Kong and dinosaurs.
Yeah, and Mighty Joe Young came out afterwards, and that was the first time Harryhausen got to do stop motion animation, and he's done a lot of great monster movies.
I have a little
Wait,
collection of his
wait,
movies.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Like I feel like such an idiot now because it's been like
Ah,
no, because like
Oh.
it's been like a long time since I've seen the 1930s King Kong. Like that was that wasn't a guy in a costume, right? That
Nope.
was stop motion.
One scene he was in a costume, but a majority of it he was stop motion. Like remember the scene where
okay.
like on display and you just see like that giant grin? That was like a guy in a mask.
Okay. All right.
Yes, I do remember that scene. It's
Right?
funny that you bring that up because I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid.
I gotta
It's
go
been a
back. I gotta
while.
go back and watch that.
See, this is what I love about Movie Club. We learn new things.
But yeah, Jim, I know you wanted to talk about some of the scientists. I know one of my favorite characters is Snake Plissken over here, who
Jess had a crush on him.
she-
oh yeah.
the-
She called him Sexy Zawa, if I remember right.
it's like that character is such an interesting character because like this is the man that kills Godzilla
Yeah.
and understands the consequences of his actions and basically like, oh, I'm going down with this. And like that's a pretty impactful moment
Oh yeah.
at the end of that film. And I think those kind of complex characters, I feel like help elevate a film like this instead of them just being like silly side characters or complete idiots who don't make any sense or logic. But he was definitely one of Dr. Surizawa was definitely probably my favorite human character in this.
He's definitely like the Oppenheimer of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's this scene where he's burning all his notes, and I think that's a good setup for his ultimate demise at the end of the movie because he's probably, you have to wonder what's going through his head. He's thinking, I can burn my notes, but I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
What if something happens to me? What if I get captured and made to be forced to do research in the name of warfare?
And
In an alternate universe, he becomes Dr. No. We are thrust into the James Bond franchise.
There should be an alternate movie where he makes a bomb that makes Godzilla even stronger and just further goes into like further destruction.
That's where I thought like this could have easily been like we're gonna nuke him, and then it's just like it just
Come on,
become,
Godzilla,
like,
we got
Just as a really quick aside, like I saw yesterday, I saw the new Ninja Turtles for my second time, and like I just love the scene at the end when like Superfly becomes like a giant and he's like rampaging through the city and he's like, oh, you guys were expecting Godzilla. No, it's me.
Yeah. They made a lot of fun pop culture references in Mutant Mayhem.
Like that was a really fun movie.
Mm-hmm. Would recommend, and maybe we'll talk about it here on the Movie Club in 10 years.
Oh, God, 10 years from that. 10
Teenage
years
Mutant
from
Ninja
now.
Turtles.
Could you guys tell me the name of the older scientist?
Yamane. He was Yamane.
I say it again because I'm not going to be able to do it.
Dr. Yamane was the older
Yamane.
one.
That's fine. There was a cool scene. So I watched this with Katie, and she pointed this out. But there was a scene where he enclosed himself in a dark room, and he didn't want to see anybody. And his daughter came over, and he was like, "Fuck off! I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. I want to sit here in the dark." And then, like a scene or two later, he's trying to give some wisdom to the military, council. And they don't listen to him, of course, because like, how could he know? But he's like, don't shine the spotlights on the monster because it'll agitate the monster. And I thought that was really cool that he got it. Like a lifetime of being a biologist had kind of just given him the intuition to understand that the more they provoke the monster, the more destruction they're going to cause, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then that's the first thing they do when he rolls up, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then he breathes like his atomic breath and it's like, okay, yeah, this is a Godzilla movie. Like I was wondering, like, wait, do his back spines, do they like light up or kind of like glow? And I was like, oh crap, that's been happening since like the first movie.
Oh, it's all here in this one.
Yeah, that was so.
It all began here.
And it also felt very epic. Like, it always feels epic when he's doing his atomic breath. They always build it up. Like, it reminded me of 2014 when you got to see the atomic breath.
Oh, yeah.
That was fantastic. I mean, people can say a lot of negative things about that movie, but I will say when you hear like that like weird like humming,
Yep.
And you see like him starting to glow, that was great. That was great.
Well, there was a scene. Well, at the end of the 2014 Godzilla, when he's fighting the second like I forget what those.
The Muto.
Yes,
Muto.
Like you just see his skin, like his back, his spikes. Well, they're not spikes, but like we'll call them spikes. But like you see, like or his
spikes are fine.
Yeah, like the camera goes from like the spikes like near the bottom of his back, and you just see like the spikes light up like going up his back, and then you just see the light. You see his mouth light up, and he just like breathes his atomic breath down the Muto's throat, and just that was
one of the greatest kills in the history of cinema.
No, you know what? Like as little screen time as Godzilla had in that movie, when he shows up, he delivers. He absolutely delivers.
I unfortunately got spoiled of that scene like an hour before the showtime. When I went to see it opening night, I decided to open Facebook or whatever to scroll while I was sitting waiting to be let in. And first thing I see is a GIF of Godzilla using his atomic breath.
Oh,
that's annoying.
Like, I remember, I saw it opening night, and
it was still cool to see in the theater though.
And I vaguely remember some guy like one or two rows ahead of me when Bryan Cranston, who was clearly the best human character in that movie, when he dies halfway through, like I'm pretty sure someone in front of me threw up his hands in annoyance.
It was probably Shane.
He was just like.
It was probably Shane.
Shane, you were very upset when we were watching it we were talking about Bryan
Cranston. I have a lot of strong feelings about Bryan Cranston's character from Godzilla 2014. So, yeah. 2 quick PSAs. So, 1, don't be a dick and start posting shit on the internet immediately after something comes out. Because, I had a bunch of stuff ruined for me from Multiverse of Madness. Literally couldn't even go on YouTube to go into my account to upload a video without 50 videos on the homepage of YouTube that just ruined a whole bunch of stuff. And very detailed descriptive titles of said videos where you didn't even have to watch the video to know what it spoiled. That really sucked, Kevin, that got ruined for you.
It was made up for by a cool audience I had in that theater. It was fine.
I remember, like I saw The Force Awakens opening weekend, but I didn't see it until that Sunday. I remember, I think like that Friday I was out like Christmas shopping somewhere, and a couple of people who had just seen it were talking about it, and like they started talking about Han Solo, and I, in the nick of time, I cuffed my ears and just started yeah.
There was a whole campaign of people making sure to spoil that when that came out. I remember that.
So, and my second PSA is, please don't fat shame Godzilla. If you
Oh
have
my
that much
God.
time to go
I
on
knew
the
you were gonna
internet and
go
fat
there. I knew
shame
you were gonna go
Godzilla,
there.
Wait, who's
um,
fat shaming Godzilla?
when
The
Godzilla came
2014
out in
Godzilla.
2014, I'm like, why is Godzilla so
The
fat?
on
I
trailer
don't
made
I don't
joke
remember
that
that.
Godzilla have curves, and I was like,
Some people were actually like upset, like upset. The same
So
people that probably got upset at
they
like
must be
there's other
super
things to get upset
fans.
about,
I'll
man.
say that's not the first time it happened. The '90s era Godzilla. Some people lovingly refer to him as Thunder Thighs.
So all those people must love sticks because they have too much time on their hands. And they need to get over it. And just, stop spending time on the internet. Just enjoy the movie. Leave Godzilla alone. Because I wouldn't mess with that Godzilla. That Godzilla is like 3 times the size of the one in this movie. And it's absolutely
No,
terrifying.
he was fat. He was
Yeah.
fast. Like,
Oh, yeah, fast. That's another thing I wanted to bring up, guys. Like, you ever notice in every Godzilla movies, how does Godzilla get away so fast with being so huge?
Because it takes one step and it travels 2 miles.
But it's like, we need to find him. Where did Godzilla go? And it's like, well, he's like 100-foot tall monster. How is it hard to find him?
Well,
that's kind of like in the 2014 Godzilla, like early in the movie, like when he comes out of the water, he starts a tidal wave, but then at the very end, when he goes back into the water, it's at like he doesn't even like he barely even makes waves. He just slides into the water and then just
well, Vinny, that's because the waves went the other way out to the ocean.
physics.
So, an important thing to remember: we know more about space than we do about our own oceans.
True.
There's a whole world under there. And a whole lot of space, and apparently a giant world where kaiju live. And we're going to see it in Godzilla X Kong, and whatever giant evil, like radiated ape monster that's going to be coming and they have to fight in the next movie that now comes out April 2024.
I'd like to see Godzilla versus Pacific Rim. That'd
want to
be cool.
see where's the Jaegers? When are we going to start getting the Jaegers in here?
It's especially infuriating because isn't Pacific Rim made by Legendary?
It is.
I want to see Ultraman show up.
Yeah.
Just
I feel like
have it all come together. Have the Power Rangers make some kind of deal with Saban Films. Bring it all together. To have the one giant payoff. But no, seriously, I would love to see a crossover where like humans wind up making Jaegers because it makes sense. It's what they did in Pacific Rim because they're kaiju too. So except they're interdimensional kaiju. These just were like, yep, we've been here the whole time, just chilling, and you had to ruin it. We're having a good nap, and you woke us up. That's why we're pissed, and we're gonna destroy your cities. I don't know if anybody else feels that way when they get woken up from a nap.
That's the thing about Godzilla is like he's just when he's storming through the city, he's just so pissed. Like, and he's just like buildings
He
are in his
looked
way.
angry.
He's just pissed off, and I get it. I do.
He had a nice slumber, and those damn nuclear weapons had to go wake him up, and he went on a rampage. See, this is the best Rampage movie. All the Godzilla ones. It's so much better than the Dwayne Johnson movie. Any other thoughts we want to share about Godzilla 1954?
I do like the. We've talked about it a little bit already. I do like how the destruction scenes and the aftermath of it was handled in this movie. The first shot after he destroys Tokyo. I don't know if it was archival footage or a recreation, but it looks like you're just looking at a shot of Hiroshima or Nagasaki after the bomb hit, and then it cuts straight to the hospital scene. I really just like how everyone's been mentioning the tone of the movie. It's very somber throughout. I like how they go straight from the destruction into that. There was also a little bit that I didn't notice until we were watching it yesterday. I hadn't noticed it before. There's a little girl in the movie. she's getting waved down for radiation, and she looks broken. And a scene or two later, we go back to the hospital, and she's in the background helping some wounded patients. This tiny little girl. I thought that was a nice little detail too.
It was also like a really interesting scene because like at some point, like you see like someone else getting is like treated, and you see like a doctor kind of like nodding his head like she's not going to make it. I thought that was like really deep. And then also when that lady is like cowering with her three children, saying,
Oh,
"We're about to
yeah.
meet your dad." I thought that was
Oh,
also like that scene truly didn't have to be in this movie, but they decided to do that. And that was awesome.
They
Yeah,
went
no,
hard.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like throughout. Oh, also super random, but if anyone watching this video is on the fence of watching the '90s movie, like you should watch it just at least just once. Not I'm saying own it, but you should. I personally, I really like it. Like I used to have like a collection of like the old Godzillas and also like the Zilla Godzilla, just because I just like toys when I was a kid. Who doesn't like toys? But
Yeah,
yeah, you should watch the '90s Godzilla. It's pretty cool. The
I had
Roland
I had all the school supplies for that movie.
You should also get yourself a, I guess, second, third generation console. Get yourself a GameCube or a PS2 and go play Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, because it is the ultimate game for all Godzilla fans out there.
agreed.
Because you get to play as all of the monsters and beat the shit out of each other.
Agreed.
So much
Love
fun.
that game.
Now, see, I want to go out and find it at some kind of like used video game store and something like that, and find it and buy it again, because I made a horrible mistake and got rid of almost all of my GameCube games, and I regret it so much now, because I definitely had that and played that a lot.
You can borrow mine sometime, Shane.
Oh, do you have it on GameCube?
I have it on GameCube.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. So that yearning has been resolved. Any other thoughts, comments, or we wrap up?
One thing I wanted to add, I wrote a few things down that I wanted to add, but everyone else addressed it. But there was one thing that I noticed about the film and I noticed with the other Godzilla films too, is the art of the opening credits. Like sometimes there is a beauty to when a movie starts and it really reels you in. And what I love about the opening to this film is that it's the roars and it's the theme song. Those are the two greatest things when it comes to Godzilla, and they deliver on it. And that's all you need to get you reeled into the film. It is such an iconic effect. Like I know they say it's like I guess a leather glove on top of a bass, or like an electric guitar or something like that. It's so effective because it's both natural, like it feels like a roar, but it's also unnatural, and it feels like someone in pain. And that's what always is like. I mean, that's what you would describe Godzilla as, essentially, you know? So, like, I don't know. That's all. I want to throw that in there, too.
Also, this poster goes hard.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
It's especially cool, especially now, because we get the same damn poster for literally every big movie.
Yeah.
And the same damn color scheme. But, like, there's an art to, like, Godzilla looks scary.
Yeah, like every poster these days has to have like 20 faces on it.
Did you do a quick round?
Like especially the last two Scream movies, like they put literally every character on the poster.
There's only one face you need to put on a Scream poster.
And that's Ghostface.
Correct.
They gotta go. You ever watch like I think it's like African movies where they take artistic renditions of what they think the movie looks like, and those are the posters to the movie, and they're like really bizarre interpretations of the movies. Like Space Jam was just like not even like they didn't draw like a Looney Tunes, they just drew Mickey Mouse in there hanging out with bad painting of it too. Like why can't we just go to something just so interesting, you know, like you say, today is just so generic.
Who's the guy that does like I don't know if anybody knows the name, but the guy that like used to like hand draw and like paint. Was it that? That's his name? Like the guy who used to like paint like movie posters.
Wait, Joe,
What's his
what
name?
was his name?
Jones.
You broke up. What was it? You broke up. What was his name?
Drew Struzan or Struzan. He did
Oh, okay, okay,
the Indiana Jones.
Indiana
Okay.
Jones. Okay.
okay.
So it even has cool things outside of the movie. But Jim, what were you to say?
I just want to ask everybody their favorite Godzilla movie because you guys have seen more Godzilla movies.
Oh,
I'm just hoping to do like a quick roundtable, and this might be my favorite so far. I had a crush on the blonde who was in, my original '97 Rolling in with Godzilla, and I can't even remember the actress's name.
time to go check.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking
I
about.
think this
Though.
is my favorite that I've seen so far. The original 1954 Godzilla.
I mean, I've only seen this one, the Roland Emmerich one, and the Gareth Edwards one. So by default, my favorite one is the one we just discussed.
Not gonna lie,
It's hard for
the
me-
original for me.
Yeah, it's hard for me to pick a favorite. I definitely think this one is one of the best.
But I mean,
I've seen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. I've seen most of them, but there's so yesterday, Shane and Joe and I watched 3 Godzilla movies. We saw this one, we watched Destroy All Monsters, and we watched Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack.
That's the title.
That's the title. That one might be one of my favorites.
It's
So over the top.
I'm pretty sure even if I have seen a lot of the other sequels, I'm sure the original still would end up as my favorite.
Yeah.
I do want to just throw out real quick, if we're going purely based off of like the action and the monster fights, it makes me so frustrated that Godzilla King of the Monsters only spent like 15% of the movie on them, because boy is it gorgeous and
It is.
look amazing whenever the monsters are on screen. And then we had to deal with Vera Farmiga becoming some kind of terrorist.
Like, oh, she's a bad guy now. Okay.
And there was a lot of great actors in that movie too. And it's just like, what are you doing here? But anyway.
I can't get enough of the 2014 one either. I love that one too.
Yeah. That's up there too for me too. I do really like the 2014 one. I know the argument is that you don't see enough of him and maybe the human characters aren't as interesting or killed off early. Sorry, Bryan Cranston. This one is the original is a great film. I always tend to feel, and it sounds like a cop-out answer, but I always tend to feel that anytime there's a successful franchise, the original usually is the best because it sets the groundwork for what comes afterwards. And the thing is that this movie does set the groundwork for all the things that you appreciate and love about the movies that you will see in the future. Like, we were watching the Destroy All Monsters movie, and there was much worse miniatures in that film where they even put little men inside the little spaceships that's driving along. And you're like, okay.
And it was in broad daylight. And it was
broad
The green
daylight.
screen was worse.
One important point I want to bring up, because I brought this up yesterday while Kevin and Joe and I were watching these. This Godzilla film is the first blood of Godzilla. Because it is still a genre film, but it takes it seriously. It has something to say. There's real emotion and weight to it. And then they took the fun parts and just ran franchises with them. Where it was just like, because Rambo First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3, they're over-the-top, cheesy action movies, where First Blood was a deep, impactful, and complicated movie, similar to Godzilla. And then, franchises grew out of them, and Sylvester Stallone came out and said he admittedly did not realize what really made First Blood great in the first place and ran for the money.
Well, I mean, at some point, it's the impression is that he's going to be fighting Godzilla.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah. Because Rambo First Blood Part 2 is the most over-the-top, ridiculous, and amazing action. It's just so absurd, but I love it. But anyway, did everybody give their favorite Godzilla movie?
Yeah, I said
Matt? I don't think Matt.
Yeah, that's what I
guess-
thought. Matt,
Yeah,
I didn't get a
guess-
harumph out of you.
Are you
Yeah,
taking
like,
Godzilla to
I think-
Applebee's?
Would I bring Godzilla? Wait, who would I bring to Applebee's?
the scientist. No, he'd be upset through the whole time.
With science?
No, we got to take him out for a drink afterwards
The
because
zoologist.
Takashi Shimura's character 100% because he needs a drink after this because he's just like I told them and they didn't believe me.
Take Godzilla
Or
take
the guy
Godzilla
from
out
the fishing town.
for some seafood.
The guy from the fishing town.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we have to talk about like, hey, so like your views, they're kind of like outdated though. So like, maybe don't sacrifice people anymore.
And the
I would
last
say-
thing we're gonna get is a favorite movie out of Matt. Matt.
Yeah, I would say maybe my favorite, like even though because like Godzilla can be seen as a couple of things. It could be seen as just like this giant creature that like destroys things, or it could be kind of like this like anti-war thing. But then I kind of like personally when Godzilla is like the savior or whatever. I really like that. And so he's like flexing, like I don't know, he's like really cool. So I like either Mechagodzilla or I like when you first meet up with Monster Zero or King Ghidorah.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's like
first
really-
Monster Zero movie. I love
Yeah.
that one.
But that's a lot of kaiju action here on a Development Hell podcast with the movie club here. And guess what? You're just going to have to find out what we're going to talk about next month. But some things to look forward to in October, we're going to be doing our Halloween themed episode. So that's fun. And in December, we're going to do our annual Pick a Movie from 10 years ago. So we'll be highlighting a film specifically from 2013. But we thank you from Joe, from Vinny, from Jim, from Matt, and from Kevin, and from Shane. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.